Hey guys, well, I'm back. So anyway, welcome back. I'm back. Life got a little bit of hectic and there just haven't been that many shows, scripted shows that I want to review ever since we're in the summertime. And now with this writer strike, I don't know when we're going to get any of the shows I want to review, but I'm still here, still giving you content. So we're just going to have to see what we're going to do. I made you a couple Real Housewives story times. And pick up a couple of new shows, talk about some shows I've been watching, and kind of give you kind of a 50,000 feet above sea level. Thinking I made you a Witcher Part 1, Part 2, kind of like review and spoiler for that kind of thing. Only Murders in the Building. I may give you like a season 1 for those of y'all who haven't watched it yet to kind of like talk about that. So we're gonna just make this whole thing work, right? But today I want to talk about two topics that kind of mesh together. First is Good Omens Season 2 and the use of flashbacks, right? Because I felt that these two topics kind of went together because the Season 2 of Good Omens is a prime example of how to use flashbacks effectively in television and film. And also the second season was also really good. So welcome to this channel. This is where we discuss television and films with an eye towards filmmaking, acting, and directing, all wrapped up in the fun little keys. So starting with Good Omens, right? I watched the first season and it kind of left me feeling, it wasn't, I won't say a meh, but it was a meh plus, right? Mainly because they had to kind of do a lot of world building, right? In that first season, with it being, having not read the source material, the books, there was a lot of world building they had to do. So I just kind of felt like it got very bogged in understanding who this person was. It definitely gave you kind of Game of Thrones without the sex and hot people type of world building in the first few episodes. But once things started moving along, you kind of got sucked into it. The reason I'm mentioning it with flashbacks is because after watching season 2 of Good Omens, I can definitively say that Neil Gaiman is one of the most effective screenwriters in his use of flashbacks. Now, Neil Gaiman is the writer of the source material, one of the writers for the source material of Good Omens. He also is the writer of American Gods and also the graphic novel The Sandman on Netflix. Watch all three. Sandman Season 1 is on Netflix. American Gods is on Stars. I think there's 3 seasons. Gaiman is involved in the first season, and then there's Good Omens Season 1 and Season 2. I loved American Gods Season 1 is fantastic. It starts to kind of trail off in the second season because he's not really involved. But you get to see in Sandman on Netflix is fantastic, by the way. If you haven't, I think I did 2 videos with Sandman that's in the playlist on none of my Netflix videos. Go look at those. You can do it with the spoilers, without the spoilers. But Gaiman is involved in the writing of both of those, all those shows, and he does a really great job in effectively using flashbacks. So I'm going to talk about Good Omens Season 2, weave in the flashbacks, and then that's kind of going to be our video. So where we catch off and where we start off in Season 2 is that Asperfell, Mr. Fell, and Crowley have now been decommissioned, fired from their respective jobs in heaven and hell, and Gabriel, played by John Hamm, shows up naked, holding a box to Mr. Fell's bookshop, right? It's always a great time to see John Hamm. I've loved John Hamm since Mad Men. So any John Hamm, a naked John Hamm is even better. And so that's kind of like our exciting incident at the beginning of this season. What happens is that, and if you watch kind of my Mayfair Witches videos talk about the use of flashbacks and how horribly that show did it, what Gaiman does is at the start of every episode and in the middle, around the 3rd act, he weaves in a flashback. And the flashback typically sets the tone of what the main character in this episode is trying to achieve or has failed to achieve and what their overall higher objective is. And the flashbacks work so great in this show because you don't feel like you're being sucked out of the main narrative to a flashback and then you have to be like, okay, what happens here? What happens here? Now, one of the reasons this actually works in Good Omens as opposed to other shows is because the actors in the flashbacks are the same actors in the original narrative, right? So you don't have to worry about a younger looking someone or someone who's kind of looked like that actor. It's the same actors playing the same characters, just at different periods of time over a larger span of time. So that is one of the advantages he has with these characters and in using flashbacks. But they're done so brilliantly well, such that they add that extra lacquer and also really flush out your B and C storyline. So starting off with Good Omens, so your A storyline that happens throughout this season is, why is Gabriel naked? Why is he showing up with just a box? He doesn't remember who he is. He doesn't know he's an archangel, right? In the interim of that, then we find out our B storyline is, by happenstance, so the first storyline is this love affair between two shopkeepers, Maggie and Nora, right? Which, quite frankly, I was like, okay. But then we also have to deal with our C storyline, which is the relationship between Mr. Fell and Crowley. And then what we get to at the end of the season is really the intersection between all three storylines, right? So I'm not gonna go into spoilers and kind of like recap it, because I want you guys to watch it. It's actually you can watch the second season without actually even watching the first season, because the show does a really good job of kind of starting off and doesn't have to do the world building. So you can pretty much catch on who these people are. You may not understand the depth of the relationships between Mr. Fell. I think another reason I really like this season or this show is because they delve into a lot of theological principles that I think are very important just in life in general, and you kind of see them play out with two people on different spectrums of the theological scale. You have a demon and you have an angel, and you kind of see them kind of play out with that, and kind of how Crowley and Azrael are able to always meet somewhere in the middle between these two different ends of the theological schedule. But when getting back to flashbacks again, another thing Gaiman and the writers of Good Omen does is they're not very heavy-handed with their flashbacks and trying to portend or kind of give you, using a flashback to foreshadow, right? So a lot of times you'll see people use flashbacks to try to kind of foreshadow what is going to happen in further on in the show or in the film. But the flashbacks kind of stay as their standalone little moments that create connective tissue to your A and B and C storylines, right? And therefore you get, once again, a different development in the characters. You understand the narrative, and everything kind of comes full circle as far as the flashbacks and what their purpose of. And I think that when you start writing screenplays, you want to use flashbacks because you see it in television and film, and a lot of people use flashbacks as a very lazy way to provide exposition, right? So exposition is a character kind of explaining what it is, explaining things that are happening. And flashbacks can be a very lazy way to give exposition when you should just show, don't tell, right? You should kind of find creative ways in which to keep the plot moving, give us character development, and keep the stakes really high. And if you use flashbacks too much, then it's like, well, why don't you just do a movie about the flashback and then give us a sequel about what's happening in present? But when used effectively, flashbacks really do add a different layer and can provide more information to the audience about who the characters are, what their objectives are, and why the stakes are so high in the present moment. And again, Gaiman does a very effective job in this in all of his different shows. In American Gods, if you watch American Gods, you remember that the show's every episode starts off with a flashback of that deity and how that deity either arrived on Earth or the main mythos around that deity, right? And that would be the deity that we would be meeting in that episode, and therefore what actions were going on in that episode always connected to the previous flashback, right? In Sandman, we have a very, I want to say around episode 2 or 3, Morpheus has a conversation with his sister, which kicks off into another flashback that deals with Morpheus and the human that he's made. And it always plays in together. So Gaiman is really at the top of my game. If you want to learn or see effective uses of flashbacks in television and film, go check out Neil Gaiman's properties. Sandman on Netflix, Good Omens 2, Good Omens 1, on Prime and American Gods Season 1 on Stars. I think those are two really great ways of showing how flashbacks are used. And I want you guys to check out Season 2. Drop down in the comments and let me know what you think. Once again, I may do a spoilery one, kind of we can delve into it. But I was just really shocked of how good this season was and how effective the use of flashbacks. I wanted to come on and talk about that. And I missed you guys. It's been like forever. So anyway, keep your eyes peeled for new videos. Don't forget to like. Don't forget to subscribe. Let me know your thoughts. And I'll see you guys soon. Bye.